Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are really strapping in for something different, a concept that fundamentally re-engineers how we think about the cosmos. You asked for the Graviton Pressure Theory, specifically part 26 of the framework, and we're diving into a paradigm shift that, well, it pretty much replaces centuries of understanding.
Yeah, it's definitely more than just a tweak to physics. It's a whole new narrative for motion. So if you, the listener, are thinking gravity is that Newtonian tug.
Right, the invisible pull.
Or even the relativistic spacetime curvature, the classic bowling ball on a trampoline picture.
I think everyone knows that one.
GPT basically takes both those ideas and, well, tosses them on the scrap heap.
Okay, let's set the stakes here for this deep dive. Graviton Pressure Theory, or GPT, says motion and inertia don't come from initial pushes or just geometry.
Right.
Instead, they're a state of constant dynamic equilibrium. It happens within this highly structured, pressurized field. The core idea, it sounds simple, but it's radical. Motion is governed by pressure, not force.
And that pressure creates structure, the key building block here. Graviton corridors.
Okay.
These aren't just abstract lines on a chart. Think of them like actual quantized directional flow structures in the graviton field.
Flow structures?
Yeah, and they maintain orbits, rotational locks, all using specific tension gradients. So planets aren't just, falling or drifting aimlessly. They are literally held, guided, contained within these channels.
Wow, okay. Held. That reframes everything. So if we accept that, we have to ditch our usual picture of the gravity well, right? That funnel metaphor.
Exactly. Forget the smooth depth. GPT swaps that for something more like granular, layered architecture.
Layered.
Yeah. Under GPT, gravity wells become layered stratifications. Think zones of distinct tension, compression, coherence. You're not sliding down a smooth slope. You're moving through defined layers, almost like atmospheric layers, but for gravity.
Ah, I like that analogy, like our troposphere, stratosphere, but defined by graviton pressure density, not air.
Precisely. Pressure density increases towards the center, sure, but the really key thing is that there are sharp, distinct boundaries between these layers. And this is where, people might get skeptical. If these layers are real, why haven't we clearly detected these boundaries before with centuries of gravity measurements?
That's exactly the question I was thinking. Are we saying all our gravitational readings were wrong or subtly flawed?
Not flawed necessarily, maybe incomplete. Traditional measurements tend to average the field out over big distances, right?
Okay.
So that smoothing effect might just wash over these sharp boundaries. GPT argues these boundaries fundamentally change local physics. Take light, for instance.
How so?
When light crosses between these pressure layers, the change in graviton compression actually causes refractive bending. So gravitational lensing isn't just space-time warping.
It's more like light hitting different densities of water.
Sort of, and it gets intensified, sharpened right at these layer boundaries where the compression shifts dramatically.
Okay, this is where motion gets tricky for me. Inertia. If the field is layered, non-uniform, then inertia, resistance to motion, must also be layered. Can you give me a tangible feel for that?
Absolutely. Inertial resistance is non-uniform. Think about pushing a submarine through water.
Okay.
If you're in deep, clear, still water, accelerating is relatively straightforward. But what if you hit a sudden patch of extremely dense, maybe turbulent water near a vent?
Your resistance spikes. Harder to accelerate.
Exactly. In GPT, acceleration changes because the pressure density of that specific layer changes the field's ability to absorb or resist the object's kinetic alignment.
So if I push something in an inner high compression layer, it feels heavier, or at least harder to get moving than in an outer low compression zone.
That's the core idea. Inner layers, tight corridors, high compression, strong inertial resistance. Mid layers are these transitional resonant zones good for stable orbits. Outer layers are low compression, diffusion zones where things might drift more easily. It's like navigating a gravitational onion. Each layer has its own rules for resistance and stability.
Which brings us right back to the roads in this architecture, graviton corridors. Okay, structured flow paths. How do they keep something in orbit without momentum or constant falling carrying the load?
Well, these corridors are described as topologically stable pressure channels.
Topologically stable.
Meaning their structure holds.
Yeah.
They're structured radially inwards and outwards to provide confinement, keep the object locked in that radius.
Okay.
But crucially, they are tangentially permissive. They allow motion along the channel with very, very low resistance.
So let's reframe orbit again. The planet isn't just coasting on momentum while falling.
No.
It's actively resonating laterally, like surfing inside this pressure corridor, and the path is constantly being shaped by the field's tension harmonics.
You've got it. Orbit becomes this continuous dynamic negotiation. Stability happens when that inward pressure gradient, the push from the central compression, exactly balances what the theory calls centrifugal coherence resistance.
Coherence resistance.
Right.
Like the object's ability to stay stable, surfing sideways in the channel.
Exactly. The field is constantly balancing that push-in against the object's ability to stay in phase with the flow. It's active.
Okay. This leads to what feels like the most, well, mind-bending evidence the theory puts forward: orbital quantization.
Yes.
Our sources emphasize that things don't just orbit anywhere. They cluster at specific preferred distances, quantized coherence bands.
This is potentially a huge aha moment, right? Traditional models allow basically any orbital radius if the velocity is right. GPT says no, there are discrete parking spots.
Parking spots.
The theory even proposes a formula, something like the stable radius is approximately the square root of n times some base radius. That looks, well, it looks like quantum mechanics, not classical physics.
You mean like Bohr's electron shells in an atom, but scaled up to planets and moons?
That's the analogy they draw. The large-scale structure of this graviton field dictates these discrete coherence shells. Planets, moons, they cluster there because those specific resonance zones are the only places offering long-term stability.
And if something tries to orbit between those shells,
it experiences higher field strain, it's unstable, it'll eventually drift or get kicked into one of the stable shells.
Wow. Okay, so if the field is maintaining the path and assigning the parking spots, the object itself must be constantly interacting with it. Motion isn't just preserved.
It's maintained continuously as a pattern response to the field tension.
Right.
And this forces us to see spin and orbit not as separate things, but unified under one principle: nested containment.
Nested containment. Okay, break that down. Let's start with spin.
Okay, spin. GPT redefines spin as the rotational containment of the body's own coherent field. It's like a local symmetry lock.
What does a symmetry lock actually do?
In practice, it means the body anchors itself inside its external corridor through rotational resonance. The spin creates these outward ripples in its local field that push against the corridor walls, helping stabilize it, center it. It's like the object's internal conversation, making sure it fits properly in the flow.
Okay, internal conversation is spin. And orbit is the external conversation, the containment along the corridor path. How do they connect?
They have to be coupled to work properly. Spin handles the internal symmetry, keeps the object stable in itself. Orbit maintains the spatial phase lock, keeping it aligned within the bigger external corridor.
So the coupling gives it stability, like a gyroscope, and dampens wobbles, like precession.
Exactly. Think of a perfectly tuned, spinning top in a V-shaped groove. If the top slows or tilts, the groove walls push back harder, right? It's that kind of active stabilization.
And there's a way to measure how well-tuned it is, this coherence ratio, kappa.
Right, kappa. It's the ratio of the object's spin angular momentum to its orbital angular momentum. Basically, the universe prefers low-strain systems.
Makes sense.
So when kappa approaches 1, or a simple fraction like in tidal locking, that's a classic example, the resonance is super stable. Field strain is minimized. But if they're misaligned, field strain goes up. The object is essentially fighting the structure of its own corridor.
Okay, let's talk about when that alignment really breaks down. The breakdown case is the weird stuff in the solar system. What's the most discordant state possible?
That would be retrograde motion. Either the spin or the orbit goes against the main flow direction of the graviton field in that region.
Counterflow.
Yeah. It's a highly discordant containment state. The object's internal resonance is actively fighting the phase alignment of the external field.
So the energy cost, the coherence cost must be huge. The field vectors are pushing against the motion.
Enormous. Maximum discordance energy cost. The object has to constantly burn internal energy or somehow draw energy from the system just to maintain that opposition.
Do we see this?
We do. Look at Triton, Neptune's big moon retrograde orbit, or Venus with its retrograde spin. GPT sees these not just as stable quirks, but as systems under immense long-term structural stress.
So the theory predicts they should eventually
decay, realigned if possible to reduce the strain, or even get ejected entirely over cosmic timescales. They're fundamentally unstable in this framework.
Right. Okay, let's connect this layered, pressure-driven idea to things we actually see out there. This is where GPT needs to offer real alternatives to current puzzles.
Planetary rings are a great example. Those incredibly sharp gaps, like the Cassini division in Saturn's rings.
Usually explained by resonances in shepherd moons, right?
Partly, yes. But GPT adds another layer. It defines those sharp gaps as tension boundary interfaces between two different graviton stratifications. They are the literal edges of pressure layers.
So the gap exists because the field itself says, nope, you can't be stable right here.
Exactly. It potentially simplifies why those gaps are so clean and persistent.
What about Lagrange points? They're already kind of weird classically.
Classically, yeah, they're just points where gravitational pulls balance.
Right.
GPT redefines them as metastable null zones. Think of them as resonance plateaus in the graviton field where the tension gradients from the big bodies cancel out perfectly.
So they're not just mathematical points, but physical zones of maximum coherence stability.
That's the idea. Places where the field structure offers a calm spot.
And the really big one, the one that could rewrite astrophysics. Galactic structure. Star velocities don't drop off like expected, which led to the whole idea of dark matter.
Right, the need for invisible mass holding galaxies together.
What does GPT say?
This could be GPT's biggest potential payoff. Look at how stars orbit in galaxies. They often fall into discrete velocity bands like lanes on a highway.
Okay.
GPT explains this entirely through layered field stratification, but on a massive galactic scale. The galaxy isn't just a smooth gravitational field, it's a huge nested structure of graviton pressure layers. Stars naturally fall into these coherence layers.
And those layers dictate their stable orbital speed and radius.
Precisely. Without needing any extra unseen dark matter, the structure itself dictates the motion. It's architecture, not invisible glue.
That is staggering.
Yeah.
If that holds up, it redefines the makeup of the universe based just on field structure.
It shifts the whole focus from what's missing to what's the structure.
And this must have immediate practical implications too, for navigation, engineering, for moving through fields with sharp layers.
Traditional navigation, assuming smooth gravity changes, just isn't enough. Future spacecraft need to anticipate crossing these pressure boundaries.
What happens if you cross one unexpectedly?
Could be bad. Sudden loss of coherence, control drift. You'd need systems that can compensate. Adaptive field harmonics, maybe. Systems that sense the layer you're in and adjust the craft's own spin coherence lock to match.
So we'd need real-time maps of the gravitational field's texture, pressure gradients, coherence thresholds, not just acceleration.
Exactly. We need to sense the texture of the field, not just its overall strength.
Wow. Okay, this has been a complete turnaround. We started with force and curvature, and now gravity, in this GPT view, is layered compression and coherence, all orchestrated.
Yeah, the big takeaway is that stable motion, like a planet's orbit, is anything but passive. It's this constant active negotiation, maintaining coherence within a highly pressurized, structured field. The whole classical picture of gravity as a smooth slope, gone, replaced by this intricate architecture, pressure bands, coherence corridors holding everything together.
So planets aren't just following paths.
No.
They're being actively held, guided, almost tuned by these invisible graviton corridors.
And that leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over. What if the cosmos isn't built on passive attraction or simple forces? What if it's built on pressure, memory, and structure? If every orbit tells a story of containment, then motion is the syntax, the grammar of that story. And gravity, under GPT, well, it's the dynamic breath that keeps it all going.